Hello everyone, welcome back to iFashi. If you're a new subscriber, welcome to iFashi. On our last post, a lot of us requested for the tutorial of how to make this dress. We posted 2 dresses for you guys to choose from which tutorial you would like us to post this week, and majority of you guys picked this green one. So here is the tutorial, and I want to say thank you so much for participating in that poll. Now, this is the pattern paper that we'll be drafting on, and here's the fabric that I'll be using. This style consumes a lot of fabric because of the flay on the down part. So I'll be using 4 yards here, but for your own good, I'll advise you use 5 to 6 yards because I had to manage this 4 yards when I was cutting the flay. So we will be drafting the upper part on the pattern paper, and we will cut the 2 tiers on the down part, the flay, directly on the fabric. So the first thing I'll do on my pattern paper is to mark out my starting line, the line I'll use as my shoulder line. I'll mark that out and label it shoulder, and the next line I'm going to take is the half length line. We're not taking a lot of that on this top, so I'll go straight to 17.5, which is my half length. I'm taking 18 actually because I'll need to have extra 0.5 inches for my seam allowance that I'll use to join the upper part to the down part. So I'm marking that line out. I'll rule it out and label the half length. Now we have our half length line and our shoulder line ready. The next 2 lines I'm going to take is our bust line and our chest line. Those are the only lines we'll be needing for this upper part of this top. So I'm going to mark 10 inches, which is my shoulder to bust point, and then I'll mark 8 inches, which is my shoulder to chest line. The chest line is usually 2 inches upwards from your bust line. So my bust line is 10 inches, which means my chest line will automatically be 8 inches. So I'll rule out those lines and I'll label them the bust line and the chest line. And the next thing I'm going to do is to go to the shoulder line and take my shoulder measurement divided by 2. My shoulder measurement is 16. If you divide 16 by 2, you have 8 inches. So I'll place the 8 inches on the shoulder line. I'll also place that 8 inches on the chest line. Then on the shoulder line, I'll come down by 1 inch, which will serve as my shoulder slope, and I'll connect that 1 inch down to the 8 inches on my chest line. I'll mark out that straight line there. Now on the neckline, which is the shoulder line, I'll take out 3.3 inches for my neck width, and then for the neck depth I'm using 2.5 inches because this neck is not deep. So I'm going to mark that out and I'll connect from that neck to meet the shoulder line that I marked out earlier. And the next thing I'm going to do after that is to go to that straight line and mark out the midpoint. After marking out the midpoint, on that midpoint I'll come in by 0.5 for our armhole curve. And then to get where you're curving the armhole to on the chest line, you're going to take your bust measurement on that chest line and add 1 inch allowance, and that is where we serve as our armhole curve. And on the bust line too, I'm also taking my bust measurement divided by 4 and then plus 1 inch for my seam allowance. And I'll curve out the armhole curve, and we have drafted the basic bodies that we need for this upper part of this top. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to go to the half length line, which is the waistline, and take my waist measurement divided by 4. My waist is 30 divided by 4, I have 7.5. So I'll mark out 7.5 and add 1 inch for my seam allowance, and then connect it from the waistline to meet those points I made on the bust line and the chest line. Now, after we're done with that, we're going to come down by 1 inch on this neckline. We are trying to determine the halter neck point of this dress because it's a halter neck. We don't need the shoulder part. I'm going to use my curve ruler to make a connection from the 1 inch I came down with on the neckline to meet my armhole, which means I have a new line going to my armhole, which is the halter neck we'll be using for this dress. Now on this line I made as the halter neck line, I will need to take a dart on the armhole part. For us to know where that dart is coming to, I'll need to take my nipple to nipple measurement on my bust line. only on my bust line, and I'll make a straight connection down to that nipple to nipple measurement. We divided our armhole by 2. We divided what we have there by 2. So it is under that line that I'm taking this dart line. So on this dart line I just marked out, I'm going to take 0.75 on both sides, which will give me 1.5 inches altogether. So 0.75 on the left, 0.75 on the right. I'm using my pencil to mark that out because we'll be cutting off that little dart there to avoid gaping on your shoulder, the halter neck part. So now we've taken out our measurements, the bust measurements, the waist measurements, the neck, the dart on the halter neck. The only thing remaining now is to slash this neck because we have a pleat on the neck part of this dress, as you can see on your screen. So I'm going to slash open this neckline from the neck down to the chest line. So I'm just making a slash and spread there. I'll open it out and cut out on another paper. So first of all, cut this off now. While you are cutting, remember to cut off this dart we have on the halter neckline, coming from the armhole side down to the chest line. I made my tearing down to the bust line where I took the nipple to nipple measurement on that bust line. So after opening it and cutting off the dart, I'll use my sellotape to close it back. This will tighten that halter neck on your chest to avoid gaping on that chest part. So after closing it down, I've cut out the excess paper that I don't need. Now this is how the front looks. The next thing we're going to do is the slash and spread of the neckline to give us the pleat that we have on the neckline of this dress. So I'm going to slash it open and spread it out on this new paper, and then I'll use my marker to trace out the new neck that will be following. When you're tracing out, make sure the armhole part is intact, is well laid on the paper to avoid it adding excess to your fabric. So just tear it open, use your sellotape to spread it open. The wider you spread, the more pleats you will have. Or if you end up having 8 to 9 inches is wide enough. You don't need to overspread it. So just watch what I'm doing. I'm spreading it and taping it down on the new paper, and I'll use my marker to trace out the new armhole and neckline that we'll be using on this dress. And after marking it out, I took my measurements to be sure of what I have. I have 9 inches as my new neck. By the time we are cutting this on fold, by the time you open it up, you have 18 inches wide. And when you pleat it together, it will give you that pleat you have on the neckline of the dress. So I'll cut it open now, and this will serve as our new front piece. I'll label it out front piece, and then I'll go ahead and start drafting the back of the upper part of this dress. Here is the pattern paper that we'll be drafting the back piece on. Now, the first thing I'll do on this back pattern paper is to take out 1 inch for my zipper allowance. If you know you use 1.5 or 2 inches for your zipper allowance, kindly take the zipper allowance that works well for you. So I marked out 1 inch and I ruled it out from the beginning of the paper. I went in by 1 inch and I ruled that out for my zipper allowance. And after that, I also take the shoulder line. Remember on the front piece, we also did this. We came down on the upper part and marked out a line that will serve as a shoulder line. Now from that shoulder line, I'll go ahead and take the length, the half length, like we did for front. After taking the half length, I marked out my chest line. This back, I did not mark out the bust line like we did for front. So I only marked out the chest line that we'll be needing because of the armhole. So we have 3 lines on this back: shoulder, chest line, and half length line. So the next thing we'll do now is to take our shoulder measurement on the shoulder line and then take the same measurement on the chest line. And then I'll come down by 1 inch for shoulder slope and I'll connect from that one to meet the point I made on the chest line. So this is basic, but this, I guess we know this already, but in case we don't, I'm also taking the 3.3 I used for the neck width for the front, and then I came down by 1 inch for the neck depth for the back because the back is not as low as the front. We used 2.5 for front, remember. So now that this is out, we're going to divide this line here by 2 and mark out the middle, and then make a connection to the bust measurement that we'll take on this chest line. Bust measurement divided by 4 plus 1 for your same allowance, and then connect it to that half point you made on the line. This will give you your armhole curve for the back. And now on the half length line, I'm taking my waist measurement divided by 4 plus 1 inch for seam allowance, and I'll connect that to meet the armhole point on the chest line. Very, very easy. On the neckline for the back, I'm going to come in by 1 inch and use my curve ruler, just watch closely what I'm doing, to make a curve to the chest line because I want an opening on my back. I want it to have an opening. If you want your zipper to get to the neck, omit this completely. I just want to give my back a little opening there. So I used my curve ruler to do that from the 1 inch I took at the beginning of the neck, and then I added back my allowance because I'll fold it in. So after that, I came to the waistline. On the waistline, I went in from the zipper allowance, beginning of zipper allowance, went in by 0.5. This is because I don't want my zip to be gaping. So I went in by 0.5 and I connected that 0.5 to meet the line I made for the opening on top. So just watch what I cut out, and this is what we have for the back. The remaining thing for this back now is to cut out the halter neck on the shoulder. So like we did for front, we came down by 1 inch to get the point our halter neck will start from, and then we connected it to the armhole. That's exactly what I'm doing here. I came down by 1 inch and I connected it to meet my armhole. So this is the line we'll be following. But for this back, we did not take any darts like we did for front. So the back is ready. Very simple. Here is the back piece and here is the front piece. The back doesn't have any gathers at the neck part, so we did not do any slash and spread. So this is the front and back piece. The next thing I'm going to do now is to go ahead and cut. But before we cut these pieces, we need to cut the flay first, because that one is the one that consumes a lot of fabric. So we need to get that one out. The flay, there are 2 tiers, like I said before. We're going to cut the 360 flay, and then we'll cut the straight pieces that we'll be using under. Now altogether, the length I want for this dress is 63, from my shoulder down, 63 inches. And now this upper part has already taken 17.5, right? From shoulder to half length, 17.5. Now the flay, the first flay, I want that one to be around 32 inches. The first flay. And then, which means the last tier on the down part will be 13.5. So if you plus 17.5, 32 inches and 13.5, it will give you 63 inches altogether. So measure yourself so that you know how to share these measurements for your full length. Now I'll go ahead and cut out these 32 inches for the first 360 flay. Now this is why I advised you buy 6 yards for this style earlier. I got 4 yards and I had to manage it, which means my flay wasn't as big as it's supposed to be. if you don't know how to fold a 360 flay, we have a video on that on our channel already, because the full folding of this fabric did not show in the camera while I was folding it. Now, before we cut out that 360 flay, it's advisable you cut off the 13.5 inches, that long fabric that you would join under. So that's the one I first measured out before I fold this part. Now I fold it down, as you can see. I fold it once, and then I now folded it to miss, just like we cut our peplum. Just like you cut your peplum. If you don't know how to cut 360, the link will be in the description box on how to fold and cut a 360 flay. So this is how it is on the table. This is what I folded. It's supposed to be folded into 8 places, but like I said, my fabric, I could get 4 places. So now, because my fabric is folded into 4, I'm going to take out the waist first, which means my waist measurement divided by 4, which is 7.5. But I will not use 7.5 exactly because I want it to have excess for me to pleat around my waist. So altogether, I'm cutting around 9 to 10 on this upper part. Sorry, my chalk did not show it. I measured 9 to 10 inches on this upper part and I cut it out. This will serve as the waistline that will join to the half length that we drafted on paper. Now from this waistline, I'll take my tape and cut 33 inches. Remember, we need 32. So I'll cut 33 because we need to join to the last tail. Now I'm marking this out 33 inches, and thank God my chalk showed here, at least you can see it. So I'm marking 33 inches out and I'll cut it all over from the waist to the down. Use your tape to measure it all around and cut it. Now after cutting that, this is the part where I would use the remaining pieces to cut out that 13 inches to join. I cut that off camera because it's very long. I already cut out some parts for that down part, so I added extra to join. Now this is the flay, then this is the long fabric we are adding as the last tier. Like I said before, this is the one I cut first and I later joined. So I cut 14 inches, as you can see, because we will need to fold the down of this one. If you want to weave, you can weave. Like I said, you can join because you need it to be very long. It's going to go around the down of this 360 flay that you cut. So measure what you have there and make sure what you cut is longer than what you have under the 360 flay, so that by the time you're attaching it to the flay, you're pleating it as well. Now this is the upper part. This is the back piece. I've gone ahead to cut the lining, and then this is the front piece. I've gone ahead to cut the main fabric and the lining as well. And I also ironed a stay to my fabric. This is totally optional. This fabric is not strong. That is why I added a stay to the lining and the fabric. So now the first thing I'll go and do is to turn this outer neck part we cut. We are not turning the neck yet. We are not even turning the neck at all. I'll go ahead and sew down this armhole. This armhole part for the front and the back. I'll put the lining to face the fabric, good sides facing each other, and I'll turn it. I'll join it and top stitch on the lining. So this is what we have. I've joined and I also top stitched. The next thing we need to do is to iron. I also did the same thing for the back piece as well. This is the front piece. We have not touched the neck. We only joined the armhole part. We also did the same thing for the back piece. We used the lining to turn the armhole part. So we'll keep that aside now and do the work on the neckline. This neck, I'm going to gather it. So I used sew on a loose stitch. This is what we have, sew on a loose stitch, and then we'll drag the thread. So I've ironed this armhole that I joined on the back and the front, and then I made a loose stitch on this neck part. I'm repeating it loose stitch because we're going to drag it to make that gathers we have on the neckline of this dress. So by the time we gather it, you measure it and make sure it's up to 7.5. 7.5 is just enough for the front part of your neck, or you can take your measurement and stop at where you would like it to be. So after doing that gathering, we'll leave that first for now and join the back piece to the front piece on the sides. So if you place it together like this and join, you have to weave it. But me, I don't like to weave, so I'm going to use this back to turn the front so that all of the rough seams will be hidden on the inside. So this is how I turn. I open out the back piece, I place the front in between, and then I'll stitch it down like this. By the time I stitch it down like this, if you open it out, you will not see any rough on the inside. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'll take it to the sewing machine and turn both sides. And when you're turning, remember your allowance. You have 1 inch seam allowance. Take your waist measurement on the waistline, on the down part. Know what is remaining so that you will not be short on your waist and bust measurement. Now I've joined it. This is what I have. This is what I said before. All the rough parts will go to the inside when you turn it like this, so that you don't have to weave at all. So now this is what we have, very neat, and it's coming out beautiful already. The next step we are going to take now is the joining of the flay part to the waistline. We are not touching the neck yet. We want to finish all of the joining, then we'll do the neck last. So on this waist part, I'm going to fold it into 2 and notch the midpoint. We want to know the middle. So we'll notch the midpoint on this upper part. I'll also introduce the 360 flay we cut and fold it into 2 as well and notch the midpoint. Now, after notching the midpoint of this flay part, I'm going to bring the upper part and the flay part together on this notched part. Remember, right sides facing each other, and I'll pin it down. I'll pin down this middle point, then go to the zipper allowance, which is the edge. Remember, as you can see, this flay is longer than the upper part, so we're going to pleat the excess on it. So I'm pinning down the last part, which is the zipper allowance part, pin down the flay and the upper part together, then pin the middle. The reason why we're pinning the middle so that we will know the excess we have to pleat. Now I've joined it. This is what I have. I started my joining from the middle to the left and to the right. So I made some little pleatings here with the little extra I had. If this flay was bigger, we would have had more pleats as well. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to join this last part to the down part of my flay. As you can see in the picture, this dress is a 2-tiered flay. So I'm going to join this 13.5 inches to the down part of this flay. So to do that, I'm looking for the midpoint of my flay. I'll notch it. I also look for the midpoint of this long fabric we cut. I'll also notch it. Like I said before, measure it. Make sure this long fabric is longer than the flay itself so that you have excess to gather. You can do the gather after notching. Place the 2 good sides facing each other and pin on the middle and on the last part as well, the zipper allowance part. So after pinning these 3 places, which is the 2 edges and the middle, you can now go ahead and stitch all the way down, starting from the middle. Stitch it to the left, stitch it to the right, then remember to gather out the excess you have. At this point, you can also do loose stitch gathering like we did for the neck before you join it to the flay. But mine is not big enough, so I just went ahead and pleated it like I did for the waist. So now we've joined the waist, we've also joined the last tier on the down part. So like I said before, you can do this loose stitch on this down part before you attach it to the flay. That is if you have excess fabric, enough fabric. I told you I was managing 4 yards for this project. So if you have enough fabric, do the loose stitch gathering on the down part before you attach it. It will give you more gathers under the dress. Now let's go to the neck part. On this neck part, remember I said after drawing the thread, the loose stitch thread that we made, we're supposed to have 7.5. If you have more than 7.5, gather it more. Drag the thread to tighten the gathers. And then this is the fabric that we'll be using as our turtleneck for this dress. It's a 2-inch wide fabric And if you want to tie yours at the back, make it very long, up to about 40 inches. So what I'm going to do now is to notch the middle. We want to know the midpoint of this little fabric I just cut. So after notching the middle, on this middle we are going to mark the 7.5 that we have. So I made a mark on that middle so I'll know where is the midpoint. That 7.5, I'll divide it by 2, place one side on the left and one on the right, which means the front neckline will be here. This front neckline of this dress, 7.5, will be attached here. That's why I marked it out. Now after marking out this, you're going to take 3 inches spacing. Mark out that 3 inches before you put the one for the back. Now we're going to measure what we have on the back. This will be where the back neck will be attached. So I'll mark that out as well. You can use the neck to measure it or measure it with tape. Now after, on this other side, we'll repeat the same thing we did on the left side, on the right side. I'll make a 3 inches space from the front neck, mark out 3 inches, and then after the 3 inches, we will now use the back to measure what we have there. We place the back neck there. You can also use 2.5, must not be 3 inches. 3 inches worked for me. So you can use a pin to secure it down so that you know what works for you on this neckline. Now let me repeat what I did here. We're going to stitch this line, but we're not stitching everything. This part I marked good, we'll stitch it. This part I marked X, we will not stitch it. The part I marked S, we will not stitch it. The part I marked good, we will stitch it. So we're going to stitch all the parts that we will not be putting the necklines. So now this is what I have. I stitched the edge, I didn't stitch this first X. I stitched this one, I did not stitch the next X. So now we are going to go ahead and turn it to the right side. Just watch closely so that you understand what I'm doing if you don't understand it for now. So after turning it to the right side and ironing, you see why we did not stitch some parts. Those parts we did not stitch is where we are attaching the neck line, both the front neck and the back neck. So after ironing, this is what I have. When you are ironing, make sure you fold it in like this. Then give it a good press. Now on this front part, I'm going to put the front neck inside as you see me doing on your screen. Very, very simple. I said it before, if you don't understand, you will understand when you watch it. Remember to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. You've watched to this point and you haven't subscribed. Please hit the subscribe button. And remember to turn on notification so that when we post, you'll be the first to know. If you're among the people that voted for us to make this dress, I want to say thank you for participating. Now after putting the front neck line on that space we made for it, this is what it looks like. So we are going to also go to the space we made for the back neckline and put it. But remember, I told you I needed my back to have an opening at the back, a little spacing at the back. So I've not turned it. You can use the lining to turn it. You can use a bias to turn it. My zipper will not get to the neck. So if you know your zipper is not getting to the neck, remember to close down this part on the neck part. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine now and stitch it down, then fold it to the right side. This is what I just did. I made a stitch from the beginning of that neck. Remember when we were drafting, I went in on the back neck by 1 inch and I made a keyhole there. That's what we're doing now, don't be confused. So I'll give it a very good press before we go ahead and put it inside the space we made for the back neck. Now the next thing we're going to do is to open up the space we made for the back and put it inside, secure it down with a pin, then go to the sewing machine and match it. We are almost done with this dress. So this is what I'm doing. I'm pinning it down and then I'll go and stitch it. I've already stitched the front. When you're stitching, give it a very neat stitch because it's going to show on the outside. The front is already stitched and it's looking very beautiful already. Like I said, make a longer rope if you want to tie your own at the neck. If you don't want to tie, you can make a short rope and fold it and put this press button. If you want to use a press button like this, it's fine. Now remember, our zipper will not get to the neck. I'll just go ahead now, fix the zipper, close the down part, and that will be all for this dress. You can decide to hem or weave. It's completely your choice. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Here's the result of the beautiful dress that we just made. Remember to like this video, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell so that you'll be notified when we post. I'll see you guys in my next video.